What's up, Pulsified? Hey, Kat. Alright, so unlike last night where I was trying to use single HG3, which ended up going way over the allowable runtime that Cosmo can do. Of course, it was no problem for me, just a problem for Cosmo. So I now have two HG3s. I thought about doing two J2s, but this setup is a little bit heavier because I got this extra tank that I didn't have before. So the extra thrust of these guys kind of offsets the extra tank there, and also these are higher ISP than the J2s anyways, 450 versus 436. So it helps a little bit. Thanks, CKY. So other than that, it's pretty much the same. I just made sure that I had to add this little diagonal piece here so that there was no gap for the air to go through with these two engines here, because when there was just one, the central flap was enough, but with two it wasn't. So no more air leaks. So I have to figure out how to do this launching with a relative inclination to something in MechJeb, because I have something that I need to rendezvous with. Ah, you made it, SimG. Alright, so how do I... So I want that. No, not that. Yeah, it is. Which one of these do I actually want, or do I have to make a custom thing, or what, to get the relative inclination to target? Hey, it knows what it wants. That's all you need. It is under Rendezvous Planner. Ah, okay. Cool. Alright, so I'm going to recover it and then relaunch it. That way we're already really close to the right spot in case of disaster. Also, I meant to put more crew on it. Yeah, it's B9 procedural wings or something like that. I'm using a set of mods that another person put together, so I don't know every single mod by name that's being used here. Alright, rendezvous planner. Nope. Oh, gotta set the target again. So you said it's also on Ascent. That's a lot of stuff. I don't need all that. Okay. He's sent me the save file so that I can cross-check parts availability so that I don't accidentally use parts that he doesn't have available, because that could be a bad idea. Yeah, I forgot I had turned the volume all the way up on the game. Is it still too loud? Okay, well I actually do find it slightly amusing when animals are reacting to stuff that's happening on a stream. So now I have to pretend I'm Cosmo and chasing relative inclination all over the place because I'm not as familiar with doing these kind of launch to rendezvous situations. pretty much everything that I've ever done is on Kerbin, and therefore everything is usually in, you know, equatorial 0 degree inclination. So this whole inclined target thing is a little bit unusual for me. Thanks. I'm glad people like the new wing because I spent entirely too long trying to make it look good. No, not a co-op station per se, just that I have to be able to prove that it'll go to his station and not trash everything. Might be a little bit too steep, but we'll see. It's in low Earth orbit. It's around 250 km, roughly circular. Yeah, he's gonna use it in the episodes. Basically, I'm subcontracted unofficially, or I guess now officially, subcontracted to make it kind of like whatever Kat's doing. She's subcontracted for that. Alright, so we got above 3 TWR, so I'm going to shut down one of the 3 E1s. Thankfully, the action group. Every time I take the external tank off and put it back on, it resets the action group to all 3 getting shut off instead of just 1, which is kind of annoying because I've done some test launches where I hit 6 to trigger the action group and all the booster engines shut down, and I'm just kind of like a little bit screwed. Throttle back to maybe not burn off the nose tank. Burning off the nose tank is another pastime of mine, apparently. Maybe I should make that front tank shielded or something. Oh no, it's gonna blow up. I don't think we can get to orbit now. I think we lost too much fuel blowing up that tank to make it to orbit. No, we might still make it. 40 or 5,420. Yeah, we're close. It drains first, yes, but I'm not certain that it would have been completely empty at the time that it exploded. Probably orbital ATK, the space division of cosmonaut crash. The mid tank is just a beauty device. It's just there to make the tank look nice. Okay, now back to getting the relative inclination under control. Yeah, the mid tank, inside the mid tank is where I stuffed the the Saturn probe core right there. The Saturn 1 core, and that's there for the purpose of avionics tonnage. I went a little too far, didn't I? He's fine with unsafe because remember that hopper or whatever that he was designing where he basically just had like I think external command seats or something just hanging out on the outside of it. Yeah, true. Well, it does have solids. It's got these little guys. They're solids. All right, so throttle down a little bit. I'm performing a little bit better than I should be because I lost the dry mass of the nose tank that blew up. Um, I don't really consider that cheating, but I'm probably gonna have to switch that one to shielded just because this thing it does well enough in the early part of Ascent that it wants to be tipped over that far, that low. And I've blown up the nose tank probably a half a dozen times already in various configurations of this thing. But also, that's just me being used to playing stock Kerbin stuff to where 60 something kilometers you should be flat by then. Whereas here, not necessarily. Nimin is really digging deep in the pockets for these names. Well, it sort of is. It's uh, bottom hydrogen and top oxygen, and then this thing in the middle just separates them. So it is a proper shuttle EFT style division of division of fuel types. The boosters, I don't bother with that. I just let each tank be a Carolox tank because they weigh basically, they're more or less the same density, so I don't really care. But with Hydrolox, the difference between the hydrogen and oxygen is so drastic that it is worth keeping it separate. So I had promised Cosmo that this thing could get to orbit at or around 200 kilometers, which isn't necessarily 100% true, but it's close enough to being true. I reserve the right to circularize at a slightly lower altitude if I have to. It's not exactly like we're short on OMS fuel. 2,500 meters per second worth of OMS fuel. And I actually got the engine angle just about right, so it's sitting here pretty much pitch neutral with RCS not turned on. I have probably a minor obsession with things being reasonably pitch neutral, which is part of why I redesigned the wing, because I didn't like the amount of pitch authority that was required to keep the thing um, at the angle I wanted it during reentry. So I redesigned it so that it would allow me to just pump the RCS fuel back and forth to get the balance that I want. And pretty much have almost no authority required, or as little as I can get away with. Would it let him like decorate the entire booster like Blue Origin style? So if, and it's probably a hopeless if at this point, but if the station gets an anime slash weeb name. All right, so I think we did lose a little bit of oxygen because last time I tried this thing to orbit, I was shutting off at like 220 by 80, and I still had about 700 meters per second left in the EFT. So I'm pretty sure there was some liquid oxygen left in it when we got rid of it, or when I burned it to a crisp. But this isn't bad, even with burning the nose tank off. Maybe I should just make the nose tank smaller and make this section bigger. Okay, now. Alright, so it's ahead of us, which is good. It's at what? Yeah, 246. Okay. Well, I was saying if it manages to make it into um a weeb name, yeah. So basically, turn the external fuel tank for the Shuriken into like an anime girl body pillow style tank, because um it's the right aspect ratio for that. So might as well. Right, I think we're about ready to circularize. Did it stop being the target? Be the target again. Technically, I'm not even in favor of it either. I just think it would be funny because Prograde X is such a massive weeb, and therefore he would probably just leave the most loving comments all over every video that featured that thing. I don't know. You could call it semi-cooperative because cancel the node. Because he's still flying the missions. He's just contracting out the building of the ships, or kind of some mission design stuff. All right, do I really need to see all these relays that I completely and totally did not totally cheat into orbit using hyperedit? Wink wink. Because I could not be bothered with trying to get unmanned probes into orbit without any other communications already being in orbit. If I was doing an actual RP0 game, I would actually not cheat, but this is just sandbox, so I don't care. Why do you keep unselecting the target, you stupid thing? Alright, that works for me. 9 hours. We gotta sit here orbiting for 9 hours. I guess that's what happens when your orbits are phased really, really close together. I've got entirely too much lag to even think about multiplayer stuff. Whoever was trying to play multiplayer with me would probably hate me more than anything, just because my frame rates and stuff suck most of the time. Alright, so let's... Where's the maneuver at? Alright, so let's warp to maneuver and hope that I didn't forget to do anything. Core overheating, shutting down. Oh, that's probably the EFT. I hope that's the EFT. Yeah, I've never really understood the premise of being able to do time warp in multiplayer, it doesn't really make sense to me how that would be okay. I mean, some people say it is, but it just seems strange to me how that would ever be expected to work. In true Cosmo fashion, I have to warp past the maneuver node. Yeah, I don't even need the panels open. So many RTGs don't need to bother with solar panels. That's weird. The green bar was like hanging out fully green till the last minute. And this is nowhere close to getting me where I want to be. Get closer. What the hell? I'm not doing that. That's stupid. Yeah, that maneuver must have been way off from when I was... Alright, let's see what this gives us. Okay, that's falling quick. That looks better. And if I go past the node, it keeps burning, or keeps dropping. Alright, apparently MechJeb can't be trusted worth a damn, which probably I should have known that already, but... Ha, that's ridiculous. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that either. Alright, let's just see what some good old RCS can do. That looks good. I'll do that. Yeah. So definitely can't trust MechJub for anything. But I think we will actually get to see the station. Hi, Bombadero. Of course, now I'm dancing all over the place relative to this node, but we'll get it in a second. Thank goodness for infinite ignitions, because without infinite ignitions, well, pretty much half the videos that Cosmos made for this series wouldn't be possible without infinite ignitions. Alright, let's get nice and close. Some of them, yeah. Right now I'm chasing this down as low as I can get it. Alright, I think 200 is probably gonna be good enough. And let's see, warp ahead 14 minutes once we get to the node. Ah, didn't like. Thanks. Took entirely too long to make it, but I'm pleased with how it came out. Now the real question is, can I turn this thing around in time to not crash into it? I think we're good. No, don't come out. Stupid landing gear. Okay. Yeah, that time warp bug really sucks, huh? I don't actually know where docking port alignment indicator is going to be. Maybe it'll be here. Yeah, there we go. It's a good thing Cosmo's not watching right now. He'd probably be having a heart attack. Yeah, exactly. So does anybody recognize this? Yeah, I'm not really sure what he meant either. Oh, real STS 119. I thought you were talking about one of Cosmo's, because he uses the same nomenclature of STS in his. Yes, the forbidden window. Wait, so I did time warp and it actually moved me legitimately further away. That's stupid. Now it's closer again. But at least the nose RCS jet seems to be working. I clipped it inside the nose because, well, it was the only reasonable thing to do. So I got those two up there, and then I got those two firing out the tip. Not persistent rotation. This is just, I don't know, this is just how it seems to always want to work. Yeah, I don't even know exactly where I want to dock yet, but ah, crap. Come back, I want to target again. Is that the right one? That might be a right one. I don't know if I can actually remember how to use this mod. Docking port is not playing nice with H or N. So I'll have to go back to here for a minute. All right, thanks, Nimmin. I guess I'll see what you think of the recap afterwards if you watch it. But I'm wondering what I'm going to have to do with this docking port if, when controlling from the docking port, some of the translation directions don't even work. It's kind of extremely necessary to not have all three axes working to translate with. Underwater's hard. I don't think I've ever really successfully done anything that was underwater. Most of the water interactions that I've had have been ditching this thing in the ocean when I missed a continent because I suck at timing the reentry. Also, I've never tested this part, so what you're seeing here, I have no idea what I'm doing other than I think this should probably work, but I have no proof that this will work. The real question is, am I going to crash into this poor station? Because I only have so many RCS jets that I can use to avoid crashing into it. So does Realism Overhaul make like stock science experiments worth less in order to make up for the fact that there's so many new types of experiments that you can do in RO? Because I've seen Cosmo use like, I don't know, a couple dozen different experiments that aren't like stock experiments. How ironic would it be if I came here with the intention of using DPI and I can't because the docking port position isn't correct to allow me to have 3 degrees of rotation or whatever. All right. Yeah, it's not going to let me do it. That's frustrating. That Control Me here is ignoring. So it'll do side to side, but it won't do up, down, front, or back. I wonder if I've got this thing like rotated the wrong direction or something that just makes it unhappy or what, but doing a docking while controlling from the cockpit isn't really ideal. So I guess DPI is therefore useless in this situation. It does, but I can't I can't control the attitude of this shuttle using the internal view, or not using the internal view, but using the when I'm controlling from the docking port, it doesn't want to work. And also maybe I'll try and I want this one instead. Yeah, it's ignoring translation requests from certain directions when I'm controlling from the, what do you call it? When I'm controlling from the docking port on the shuttle, it's ignoring everything. It's ignoring fore and aft. It's ignoring dorsal and ventral. The only controls that it accepts is these starboard and port translations, which is kind of useless because if you can't control exactly where you're going, then you're never going to dock. So maybe it's sabotage by Cosmo in order to ensure that DPAI will never be a thing in his game by this thing not working with it either. Yeah, I might. It may have something to do with how long the game's been running. I'll have to try it again. But I mean the memory usage isn't too bad with it right now, so I wouldn't expect it to be too much of a problem right now. Yes, a very clever one. But we inch ever closer. And this is how he likes to do it anyways, so we'll we'll humor him. We'll humor him and hope that hell we don't crash in to this thing. I guess it helps being in this camera mode too. Yeah, unfortunately. Sometimes that's the only thing you can do is flail towards the port and hope. That was harder to say than it should have been. On the bright side, the ports are fairly well balanced, so I'm not having to fight this thing as much as I probably could have had to do. Yeah, it would be a little bit nicer if I didn't have to uninstall the high res textures, but such is life. Well, when you have to choose between gaming on a Mac and gaming on not a Mac, choose not a Mac because this is not the life I want for myself. So close yet so far. It kind of did because I used to work at a place where using Macs was required. Like you didn't even have the option to have not a Mac as your work computer. They wouldn't let you in the door. So that's how I got into this whole mess. And then when I left that job, I got a Mac for personal use because by that point I was already pretty familiar with it. So I just figured, what the hell, I'll just keep what I've already got. And all right, really close now. How much closer do I have to get before this thing is going to think it's close enough? Yeah. Unfortunately, I'm doing a little bit of that bump and rub game. Because the station doesn't have any actual control of its own. No, it's empty. The station is totally empty right now. And it doesn't have like a. Well, it doesn't have any. It doesn't have enough RCS stuff on it to keep itself in place, anyways, because the only RCS on it is the tug. So the rest of it is not there. Or the rest of it has no RCS. I'm not sure what he's got planned as far as that's concerned. What are these bumper things somebody was talking about? Is that worth doing? Yeah, it is, and it kind of sucks. But let's see, can I open this? Yeah. It kind of sucks that he decided to just make the station not able to control its own attitude or whatever, but that's what we got. And I'm learning the hard way how hard docking is with really weak RCS. Because everything happens so slow with these weak RCS setups that I can barely tell if what I'm doing is making a difference or not until it's making too much of a difference. because I'm used to like stock RCS where you push a button and you immediately can tell which direction you're headed and all that good stuff. And it is a good thing I decided to clip that nose RCS port into the front, because I don't think that this would even be remotely possible without it. I'm not sure if the SKS has like a nose forward RCS port for backing up with or not, or if he just deals with it not having one or what. I'm glad that he gets to do this for all the videos and not me, because I wouldn't. Oh no, we're off to the side now. I wouldn't want to have to do this time after time after time. Whatever she's doing, I would assume. Well, unless she's doing it in a sandbox, I would assume that she can only do part of it per stream because of how long it would take to get wherever you'd need 30,000 meters per second to go. Because if she's making something for his game, he's got so much other stuff scheduled on the alarm clock that you can't just fast forward through years and years worth of nothing to get where you want to go. He's actually very time efficient in that regard. Because everything he's done, he's still only in the mid 80s. Will there be staging though? I would assume so, because I don't think it would even be remotely possible to get 30,000 meters per second SSTO. At this point, it's like, can you just tie a rope to the docking port and call that good enough? Seems like that should be good enough. Because I probably can get some rope to tie to the docking port. Ah, somebody followed. Thanks for following Sealand Dropple. Did I just cut the screen to black? That was an accident. Yeah. Ignore that. That was just me clicking the wrong thing. I can never quite tell what plane I'm moving in though. I'm just not used to how slow to react the RCS is in RSS. I don't think I could handle it if this thing was spinning 300 RPM like that thing was. Yeah, you want to do it. Is this going to be it? Why are they sliding through each other? No fair. It's like the bumpers are not bumping or something. Yeah, of course now I've knocked into this stupid thing and they are compatible, right? They're both Apollo docking systems, yeah, so they should be compatible. Oh, that was a stupid decision. Yeah, if only. Also, it would be nice if the station could hold itself still. Because if it could hold itself still, at least I wouldn't have to worry that much about the repercussions of just sitting real close to the port and hoping for the best. It's not actually DPAI that's not working, it's the vessel that's not working. DPAI is doing its job. Like, it's showing me what I needed to see when I was lined up with it. The problem is I can't control the ship while controlling myself from the docking port. So I guess at best, so like that. So I can do left and right works, but if I hit I and K, nothing happens. If I hit H and N, nothing happens. So we're controlling from this guy. The only other thing I can think is maybe using this style docking mode. But no, that's not working either. So unfortunately, that's the only option I've got. I will when I get close. Probably should actually quick save when I get close. Just so I can quick save when I get close, then at least that way if I knock into it again, then I won't have to completely start a new approach. Oh, you mean to see if it affects it? Yeah, let me see. Nope, still doesn't let me do it. Only thing I can figure is maybe it's the way that the port is rotated or something, but that shouldn't really be the case because it shouldn't care. At least I don't think it should care. So I'm wondering if the DPAI screen will still show me anything useful or if it thinks I'm trying to dock straight to the nose of the cockpit. Yeah, made it to orbit, but you're going to have a lot of fun docking this thing, Cosmo, because when I'm controlling from the docking port, I can't translate in any direction except side to side. Right. So DPI is pretty useless um, for this guy just because of its inability to orient or to steer itself. Yeah, so you have to dock it entirely visually, and the distances and the nav ball and all of that is going to be, you're not even going to have the nav ball to help you. I'm going to try and see if I can fix it later. It's useless in this particular circumstance. I know you want me to just say it's useless. You're probably going to clip me saying that because it sounds better to you to have somebody say it's useless, but it's not totally useless. It's just useless right now. I know how you want to twist it. Does that actually happen to you then, to where controlling from the docking port completely screws up your ability to translate in all three axes? Because I've never experienced that before. I don't know if that's just some weird thing um, about Realism Overhaul or what. If I absolutely had to, I could stick a small probe core underneath the docking port and try controlling from that probe core instead of from the docking port and see if that works instead. I see. See, I never would have expected that to be the case. These damn docking ports don't want to seem to get magnetic or anything either, which doesn't help my cause. Well, and in this case, gratuitous quick saves. Those are fighting words, Cosmo. Actually dock this time. Please talk. I'm confused. Like, how much closer do I need to be? I'm pretty much should be within magnetic range, right? Oh, now it's trying. Yes! Got it. Finally. Took long enough. It looks a little bit less ridiculous than the SKS, right? Of course, the other thing is if you've got everything repositioned with balloon tanks with no persistent rotation. Yeah, but once this, I didn't rearrange it or anything, so it's exactly as it was at the end of your live stream on Wednesday. So there is no such thing as CLS compliance yet because this little tank here is in the way. But it's a lot more manageable of a package than the SKS, at least. And whenever you get the docking port more better positioned, then you'll be even less close to smacking into things. Of course, everything's completely full right now, isn't it? Yeah. So there's nothing actually to transfer right now because all of my tanks and crap are full, but so are all of your tanks and crap. Did you say you still got another fuel tank that you're going to send up to this thing? Because I've got like 50, not 50. How does math work? I've got like 35 tons of hypergolic fuel, give or take. Thanks, Cosmo. All right, so now that we've proved that it can dock with the station without destroying everything, now we got to bring it back home. Oh, you missed the good part, Cat. We actually docked. And Cosmo came by to watch the dockening to Mexico. I don't know where we're going to land. Where's a good landing spot in front of us? Are there any good landing spots in front of us? There's a whole lot of ocean. I guess we'll just have to warp around for a while. In the meantime, we can dump out a bunch of fuel that we don't need anymore. Yeah, I'll have to see what it looks like when we're a little bit further around, if it's still lined up okay. Landing in Africa is kind of like the official, unofficial meme of shuttles in his save game, isn't it? This is Ship Manifest. So my goal is to have around 5 minutes of fuel runtime left. Yeah, on my own game I do use TAC fuel balancer rather than using this thing. Okie dokie. And then so that's Intio. So now this stuff. Okay. So it's just about balanced. I'm not really gonna worry about trying to balance it any better than that. Retractable. I'm assuming it is because it calls itself Apollo, so I'm assuming that's Realism Overhaul. But it's not the. This is just a standalone docking port that I stuck onto the side of this tube here. It's not like a. It's not the inline docking port because this cargo bay is separate from the docking port. And no, I'm not dumping the crew. That's cruel. Alright, I can't be bothered to sit there and wait for that to finish dumping because oxygen doesn't weigh that much anyways, so I don't care. Whoa. Okay. So where are we at now? We're way over there. So I think if I deorbit somewhere around there, then that should give us a pretty good chance of hitting Africa. I have no idea how long this burn should take either. Probably not too long though. doesn't need to be exactly accurate. All right, so we got a while to go. No trajectories mod. Because technically, how and where this thing lands is only slightly my problem. The abort protocol for what? Landing? Or you mean during takeoff? Or during launch? Holy crap, it is bright. There we go. It flies reasonably well as a plane as long as you can dump the extra fuel out of the butt. So it can do RTLS if you can dump the fuel fast enough. We tested a transatlantic abort on accident last night by landing in Africa after launching from Florida, and that seemed to go pretty well. I don't think it'll land in Europe unless you're doing like a really high inclination launch from Florida. Single engine out probably won't go too well. If a booster shuts down, fortunately they're liquid boosters, so you can probably jettison, but I haven't rigorously tested those kind of failures. I might need to build in extra action groups to handle like a booster shutdown and jettison earlier than planned or something like that. So something you may not have been able to see earlier is there's a hole right there, kind of where the parachutes are, that I use the parachutes to patch. Because the single engine design, this section was actually being occupied by the tank. So to cover up the hole, I just put the drag chutes in that position. And then these are the panels I was talking about earlier that I had to build up. Because previously the butt flap was just this flat piece, and this flat section of wing was, so there was like a gap right there. So now that should be reasonably well protected from fire damage. The hardest part is getting these stupid angled control surfaces, because you have to rotate the part and then offset the corners, because it doesn't have any concept of just attaching straight to the edge. And up here at the front, my only real concern was I wanted to make sure that the cut here for emergency rescue panel wasn't covered up by the chin. This panel here, this angled panel, that was a pain in the ass to get positioned right. And this angled panel here was a pain in the ass to get right. Because it's like a compound angle rotation plus compound angle shaping of the part. And it also likes to get all crackly when I'm doing this split open air brake thing. It'll randomly sometimes do a full hard over rudder just when I press the brake and spin the thing out into a flat spin for no reason. Sometimes it'll do it, sometimes it won't. Okay. It's decided that there's an atmosphere now. And I was extremely picky about how I allowed each RCS port to have a particular job to do. So, like, these thrusters up here are only yaw, and they don't do side-to-side translation and everything. So there should be no need to shut down any thruster ports at any point during the descent, because everything should pretty much only fire in a useful direction. And part of the goal with the wing was actually to move the center of lift forward so that I could have a big envelope of angle of attack stability. So I don't need that much pitch authority yet to hold the nose up, because that was one of the problems with the regular Shuriken and the SKS and the Cerberus is that they're all so nose heavy that they kind of like to fall nose first rather than belly flopping. And I think Cosmo's apprehensive about having a center of lift that's anywhere close to his center of mass, but when you're trying to hold sustained high angle of attack, you kind of have to. Because I was able to re-enter his Mark V cargo Shuriken with 8 tons of cargo in the cargo bay. It almost burned up when I flew it exactly as he had it, and then when I just slid the whole wing assembly forward, it re-entered pretty much with no problem. Some of them are multi-role, like that one has 2 jobs. These have 2 jobs. No, that's just pitch. That one has 2 jobs. He likes the mantra of always keep your center of mass ahead of your center of lift at all times, and you'll have a happy flight. And for level flight, yeah, I agree with that. But I think because of the fact that he plays career mode, he didn't want to risk losing money doing lots and lots of simulations and or losing actual ships experimenting with a slightly different stability envelope. Because I've got the RCS fuel pumped all the way to the very back. This tank back here is the only tank with any fuel in it right now. Which technically means that the wings are still not as far forward as they could be. I just don't know if I'd have enough coverage if I moved them that much farther forward. But yeah, just changing that one small thing was enough to drastically change the re-entry abilities, because he never got a Shuriken to come back in one piece while anything was in the cargo bay, and I landed one of these things with the long cargo bay and no crew cabin, with a 20-ton ore tank in it, and it still came through fine. So these things can carry back an awful lot of weight. I've lightened it for this reentry, but I could probably bring it down and land 40, 45, 50 tons rather than just the 23 that we're going to land with. Yeah, if you've got ways to keep yourself from flipping out, then the agility can be worth it. I was making the joke to him the other day is that the yellow ball and the blue ball were too far apart, and I find that the re-entry characteristics are much more suitable when the balls touch. Which he got a kick out of that. Alright, how are we doing for Africa? We might not make it to Africa. Oh well. We might do another oceanic test, shall we say. Let's see if I can trim this thing out a little bit. Without burning up. But this is what I was talking about earlier with the minor obsession with being able to be fairly pitch neutral. So now that I've lowered the nose, it was having to push the stick forward, so I adjusted it so it's mostly neutral. Is it worth trying to turn right a little bit and hit this piece, or are we kind of already doing everything that we can? Yeah, I think Infernal Robotics is named Infernal for a very good reason. And I don't think there's any hope whatsoever that I could get this AJ-10 to fire one more time. Even though I have fuel for it, I don't think I'm going to get the fuel settled. Probably there's no hope. Yeah, not going to happen. Was it styled after any kind of real life plane, or just generally just using the concept for something that was your own? This is so tense. I don't think it's gonna make it, but it's right on the edge of maybe it'll make it. Maybe if I just do this, it'll settle the fuel enough to relight the engine. Is that not how this works? Probably not. It's not unstable. That was just me attempting to shake the thing around enough to get the fuel to settle. I don't know, man. We might make it. Trouble is, we're getting to the point where we're gonna start slowing down real quick in a second. Because the one nice thing about the radial AJ10s is even though they use a totally different fuel type, the monomethyl hydrazine and MON3, yeah, they don't require ullage at all, so you can just fire them up anytime you want to, even when you're going headlong into a very hot part of the atmosphere. If you need to extend your range, you can just hit Z and go for it. Whereas I've got entirely too much forward deceleration to have any hope of relighting my engine. I can probably do it a little bit lower down though, when I'm not braking so hard. We're so close. We might make it. I should have just burned 10 minutes later and then pancaked the shit out of it and done a really fast descent. As soon as we get over land, I'm going to pancake it. Cool. We did it. Now it's time to really slow down. That's what I would be worried about, is the amount of cracking that you would experience trying to do that. But then again, I've seen some person that made a like a Transformers type plane where they hit a button and it turns into a robot looking thing, and then they hit a button and it turns into a plane. Can it walk like a robot? Like actual normal kind of leg movements and all that stuff? Yeah. There's probably no actual open clearings to land anywhere in this bit because the entire thing is a rainforest. So, if this were a very realistic world, then we would be landing on treetops. I wonder if I can use the drag brakes without completely flipping out. Yeah, maybe. I just don't trust it. It's an option. I just have a hard time believing that it actually works. No, that's all Cosmo's wheelhouse. I don't play with the detachable fuselage sections. So one of the other things that caused me to redesign the wing this way is, you remember there used to be like a panel that ran along this way that reached from the sill here down to the wing. What I actually found out is that because that is anhedral, it was actually causing bad side slip characteristics, because it was like as if you had a wing that was like a Imperial shuttle from Star Wars, where the wings angle down from the body, and um, it had a tendency to make the flip out characteristics a lot worse. somewhere around 100, but eh. This exact variant hasn't been landed before. Like, this exact iteration of the ship only existed about 20 minutes before I got online. But yeah, I'm not exactly sure what else there will be after this thing is handed off. If there will be any extreme need for more stuff, or if I should just pick and choose things from his ship catalog that I think I can make slightly better, or what. I was actually thinking about trying to create a crude Cerberus, because I think that I can probably do a thing or two for the re-entry characteristics of that thing. Although I haven't actually attempted to fly it yet, but um, if I can get it to where it re-enters as calmly as this thing does, then it might be worth trying to put like a like maybe a Mark II inline cockpit or something like that. I may have to slide the wing forward like 1 pixel, because that's Z fighting is not what I like. Because the back edge of this wing is right at the back edge of the tank. I'm not even a plane designer, though. That's the thing. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just tried to make it look nice and fly okay, but like in regular KSP, I've never made a space plane before. The only reason I was able to kind of do this was because I at least had a baseline of the ship that he already had created to have some idea of what it should fly like. Pluto. Okay, that's fine. Nice to know Pluto's through the planet. Yeah, I was gonna ask, what the heck is a sac here? Or sassier? Is that French? Yeah, see, the yaw goes crazy when I use the air brake at low altitude. Of course, I'm transonic. Maybe that's something to do with it. Maybe I just shouldn't use it between Mach 0.85 and 2. Huh? Oh, okay. I see what you mean. You have the tiredness. Also, I haven't tested the parachutes that I configured myself. I hope they do. I hope they deploy at the right condition and situation, but I guess we'll find out. Okay. So let's kind of level out here. Hit the ground, you stupid thing. Uh, those are big. I didn't expect them to be that big. Alright, well, anyways, that works well enough, I guess. No bounce, no stupid stuff. Yeah, I didn't really do anything special. I just kind of left the brakes at 100% and auto friction control and all that stuff. So I don't know. We got 6 Kerbals home safely and docked with a station with great difficulty, and I guess that's about all we can hope for. Just with a more updated station next time around. So how much of our money are we actually getting back? I don't know if it'll say in sandbox mode, but that's going to be important for Cosmo to know how much return. 6 is a standard complement for a crew rotation. So there will be capacity for 7 on here. Standard crew rotation is 6. 7 is in case a rescue is required. You can fly up with just a pilot and nothing else, and then bring 6 extra people home. How do I make it? It's not going to show me because it's sandbox. That sucks. But I think it's about 47,000 funds recovery, give or take. Basically, this has to be able to do a crew transfer with a Perseus. So it's 97,000 cost to launch, and if I take off the orange tank and empty out So yeah, he should be recovering about 47,000 and something. Yeah, there can be a satellite version. I don't know if I've got it. Every time I get online, yeah, I guess not. Every time I get online, I zip up a bunch of the craft files so that they don't show up in the list. But there's all those development versions that I tried. This is the one here. So CF is cabin forward. So that's with the cabin in front of. Dang it. Because when the first Shuriken-K had cockpit, cargo bay, cabin. So the CF is with the cabin in front. And then I did one with two J2s, one with a single HG3, multi-engine. The multi-engines, I was trying to use a pair of LR87s plus a single HG3, basically. Actually, I think B was 3 LR87s, but I was just trying different combinations of engines to get a good thrust to weight ratio at burnout. Yeah, that was the one with 3 LR87s. CFS. So you like it with the cabin forward, then Pulsivide is what you're saying? The reason I decided to use the CF on the ones currently is because I have 5 pieces of fuselage, and so I figured it would make sense to have the docking port somewhere near the middle. Okay. I mean, I can swap. It's pretty easy to swap around because, like, this all just comes off as one piece. And then this comes off. And then that comes off. And then that goes back on. And then that goes back on. And that goes back on. So it doesn't take much to swap it around. The only thing is I'd have to reposition the thrusters to account for the change of, because I can't put the thruster on top of the doors there. But it's doable. I can reconfigure one to be this way around and still work. I think this layout makes more sense for tourists if you were doing tourist contracts, because like the tourists would be separated from the cockpit. But yeah, so another thing you can do is that the only stupid thing I did is that I attached the ET to the crew cabin. That was a potentially stupid thing, but then I can take this cargo bay and this. Of course, I could actually probably do 3 cargo bay sections. So like that. I think the wings, yeah, the wings are attached to this. So I'd have to pull the wings off and move them, but because that's not right. But if I can reattach the wings to the rear tank instead of this tank, then it would probably be okay to have like this size of a cargo bay. But that's why I specifically redesigned this so that it's easy to switch, because these little tanks used to be attached to the firewall, and then I realized that that wasn't a great idea to have these tanks attached to the firewall, because that way it's really easy to pull this out, and then if I really desperately need the space, then I can do like and do something like this. I'll attach. So like if you really, really need lots of cargo space, you can strip it down to be more like that. Or even not having a docking port at all if you know that you're not docking to anything and just deploying a satellite. But at least this way is still, I think, CLS compliant. Yeah. Because it only likes to stack attach these little cans. So you can stack attach it and then rotate it and offset it as much as you want, and it'll still consider it to be connected. Yeah, and the engines here, as configured in today's launch that we actually did. 2HG3. Yeah, it is. It's just not as neat. So exactly as configured here, when I did the test launch before getting online, I still had 700 and something meters per second left in the orange tank. And I have a liftoff thrust of 1.13. And that is with E1 engines. If I go back to using the RD170s down here, then what would that give me? So that went from 1.13 to 1.14, and that's the base model. If I do RD171M, it's still 1.4. I don't know if there's a difference in thrust. Nah, it doesn't seem to be. So what does the 171M give you? Maybe more throttle? No. I have no idea what the difference is. But anyways, so yeah, so that would add a whole lot more lifting capacity to this guy just by going back to the big engines down here, or F1s because it's still Carolocks. So where the F1's at? No. You want F1. I'd have to enlarge the diameter a little bit. So with F1s, that's liftoff at 1.31. F1A lifts off at 1.53. So using F1 boosters, it would be a hell of a lot more lift capacity. I think that's what he uses on the SKS, is a pair of the F1As. So it just depends how much you want to stuff into a tiny chassis. Because honestly, by the time we're getting to using F1s on the boosters, the payload is probably so large that you need the SKS payload bay anyways, and the Shuriken wouldn't do anymore at that point. I haven't fully figured out exactly what I want here, but if I go and just reload this thing as it is, well, technically you can still see it in the screen here. So this guy with the crew carrier and all that is hitting orbit at 61 tons, and with life support and all that crap still in here, it's landing at 27 tons. If I take all the life support out, then it lands at like 20 tons. So about 40 tons of extra stuff. And that's not completely pushing the envelope, so it could probably get to 45. 45 tons of cargo, probably. Yeah, I pretty much done everything I was gonna do for today, anyways, and SimG probably needs to sleep as well. So, um, I was just rambling with different designs, but we can talk about it more on Discord. And I think I'll call it a night and see you guys whenever, if I have more stuff to do. So, thanks for hanging out, guys, and see you guys later.